Well, hello everybody. My name's Iain Smith. I am a criminal defence lawyer. I'm going to take you on a little journey which I've been on, which started for me in 1993. In 1993, I just finished university, I did my diploma in legal practice, and I got a job. I got a job in 1993 with a firm called Skene Edwards and Garson. And that's where Robert Louis Stevenson did his legal traineeship, and that's where I started my legal career. And on the first day, being a lawyer, my mum and dad had bought me new clothes, new shoes, new bag, new shirt. I looked like a lawyer. Wee guy from Livingston, dyslexic, brilliant. So I thought it was really cool, and I stayed near the meadows in Edinburgh, and I skipped through on a fine autumn day, freshly cut grass, the sun was shining, everything was great, and I arrived at the firm. And make me very welcome to call me Mr. Smith, and that's my dad's name as well. That's amazing. So I arrive, and I go upstairs to the office, and it's a really posh place, Queen Street in Edinburgh. Posh office, Chesterfield suites, wooden panelling, library, and the partners all gathered around, and the guy who's the head of the Robert Louis Stevenson Society welcomed me. He said, "It's a huge honour for you." I was like, "Oh, right, okay. It's a huge honour for you. You're walking in the steps of Robert Louis Stevenson." And he told me what was going to be important, and I was listening, surrounded by these partners. And he told me what was to be the three most important things that I was ever going to learn as a lawyer on my first day. And as he's about to tell me, I look down in this beautiful red carpet, and I see there's a bit of grass from the meadows. So I bend down. I'm now 50s, you can't really bend down, and I pick up the grass and I put it in my pocket, and he says, "Iain, the three most important things are of being a lawyer are," and I start sniffing my fingers. I'm like, holy fuck. I've got shit on my nose. I've got shit in my fingers. I've got shit in the pocket of my new shoes. I'm a trouser. I've got shit all around this lovely office. And the next thing I remember is he said, "And that, Iain, those are the three most important things." It took me a long time to work out what those are, and to take you on the journey that I was on. Because in 2018, I watched a film called Resilience by the late and great James Redford, who's Robert Redford's son. He was a filmmaker like Fritzi. Fritzi hid her talents and other talents of her visual. She's made films with Jennifer Lopez and Dr. Dre and all these people, so she doesn't, she's on a Grammy, she doesn't tell you about these things. She's here to tell you about something else. I watched this film Resilience, and it was all about trauma. And it's all about what happens when the developing brain in a child is flooded with adversity and stress. And I'm watching this, and it lasts an hour, and I'm thinking, I've been a lawyer for 25 years, and I didn't understand any of my clients. I thought they took drugs because they chose to take them for pleasure, rather than the true reason, which was to remove or reduce pain. I didn't realise that they were angry and telling me to fuck off, and my response was, "Who are you speaking to? I was a lawyer." And I would tell them, because I'm from Livingston, to fuck off. Because they were dysregulated. I didn't realise what was going on. And just in terms of what I do now with that, is I can see someone's agitated, I walk away for a couple of minutes, and I come back and they're regulated. Just simple things, small changes. But that film changed my personal life, but also changed my working life. It changed my way of being, it changed what I do as a lawyer, it changed who I saw in front of me, how I listened, how I really heard them. Now, unlike Fritzi and James and Natalie, I'm not a healer. These guys heal people. I'm a lawyer, I'm still a lawyer, that's what I do. But what I can do is I can signpost my clients to people who can put them on a better path to recovery. I can disrupt their trauma, or at least to start the journey of that. And everyone in this room can do that too. I don't know where they are, but I think West Lothian College are here as a prime example of where I signpost my clients. I physically, on occasions, physically take my clients by the hand after they get out of custody from court, and I walk them maybe half a mile, or not even that, probably 500 metres, to West Lothian College, where they're greeted with a hug and asked, what do you want to do? What would be good for you? It's not about formal education. They disrupt right there and then. That's what we can do. So get the clever people, the healers, to do these things. That's what I try and do. What I realised when I understood about trauma, that the change that had to happen was actually in me. And the bigger change that I realised has to happen in the justice system, in the judges, in the social workers, one of whom is here, who herself had changed how she saw and dealt with people. Police officers, prison systems, prison governors. Nobody likes anyone, including a lawyer or whoever, to say, let me try and do it a bit like this, and everybody, who are you to tell me to change? So I understand that. So those in power, the systems in power, we don't like to change. So that's really difficult. The justice system that we have in Scotland focuses solely, at the moment, on retribution and punishment. We think that is the best way to deal with people who do something wrong. And we talk about justice as if it's about hard and soft justice, completely the wrong narrative. Imagine switching that to a system focused on rehabilitation, healing and repair. Karen McCluskey describes that as smart justice. Good for victims because there's less victims, better for the community because people then don't continue to offend. In Scotland, with our retribution, our punishment system, how does that work out for us? Because we know we've got 8,000 prison population roughly at the moment, highest in Western Europe. We have the highest drugs deaths amongst the world, not just in Europe, amongst the world. 1,339 in 2020, and just a slightly bit less than that last year. During the 2 years of COVID and just up to around now, I have experienced, I'm a very small firm in Livingston. So I'm a nobody in terms of criminal justice. A small firm, I've had 16 clients die of drug-related deaths in the past 2 years, most of whom have been over 20 years. This is unacceptable. James has taught me that as far as dealing with people who are traumatized, who are involved in addiction, they cannot be punished into a better way of being and who they are. It's not how it works, but that's what they do, but they can be locked back to hell. I know that sounds odd to hear from a criminal defence lawyer, me talking about love in a system that I make money from. Traumatised people, that's how I make a living. But what we do with our system is we spend lots of money on building bigger and better jails, rather than looking at ways of reducing the prison numbers. I know we're talking about people in prison today, but we should be talking about how to make less people in prison, building better people rather than better jails, providing rehabilitation, providing ways and pathways out, for example, a college, or their cards so that they can go on a building site to do some work. If that's what we want to do, recognising their pain. So judges and colleagues often think, when I'm speaking, certainly 4 years ago, they would think I was odd. Of course, my peers would ask me, are you feeling okay because of the way you're talking? I'm absolutely fine. You're the ones that have got a problem. And the reason they have a problem with me is because their clients were saying, why don't you talk about me the way that lawyer talks about me? I don't want their business. So in Livingston, they all talk like that. Yeah? Because that's how change happens. They don't want to lose their clients, so they care. I focus on the who rather than the what. The what is obviously what they've done. And I noticed that their battles for justice, which I thought would happen in the court, actually start, as James says, from birth. Fritzy says about the high chair. That's where the battles for justice happen, and judges need to know this. And they'll say things like, Mr. Smith, you seem to suggest that all your clients have been impacted by trauma. Well, that's almost right, my Lord, except it's not just my clients. It's all the clients in your court. I've actually said that in court, almost got a doing from the judge. Mr. Smith, your client, she seems to be coming off the rails. She's never been on the rails before. Judge deciding not to jail a dysregulated young man thinking he's doing him a favour and says to him, your client must think he's the luckiest person in this court. He said that out loud. You're mistaken, my lord. He is the unluckiest person I've ever met in my life. He's been abused, neglected, and he's unloved. He's in Julie Knight's court. That's who I see, and that's who I have to say in terms of making judges look differently. John Carnahan, who worked and started the violence reduction unit with Karen McCluskey, said to me, Smith, you're never going to change things top down, you need to go bottom up. So bearing that in mind, along with great colleagues like Douglas Clark, who's here, James, and others from the violence reduction unit and our lawyers, we created in December 2020 an organisation called Trauma Aware Law, because we realised in order to create a bottom-up change, we needed to get to the law students. We needed to get the young people. So there's a couple of them here from my village that have come who are studying law criminology. And if we get to them, they're going to be tomorrow's judges. So they're going to change things. But I wasn't content to wait on a bottom-up approach. So we targeted lawmakers, policymakers, the Judicial Institute who train all the judges, the Sentencing Council, prosecutors, hopefully one of them is here today, and look at things top down. And by some miracle, as has been referred to already, in January of this year, we have created, through the Sentencing Council, a change in policy to young people. So young people, the court system was, if you're under 21, you were deemed as a young person. It's now 25 because of the malleable brain. So that in every case, the judge dealing with someone in the GP court, we call the Pishy court, the GP court, the summary court, the solemn sheriff court, and the high court, in every case and every judge must take into account childhood trauma, adverse childhood experiences, and below that the subcategory which all relates to the same thing, mental health, addiction, care experience, difficulties communicating. The judges have got to consider that, and they've got to focus not on punishment but on rehabilitation. So these changes at the top level, the systems changes can happen, but we've got to be persistent. We've got to explain why we've got to change things, and why we've got to change things is our prisons are full, people are dying in our country, and we're ignoring it, or we were ignoring it. So this is a proper positive change. I don't want what I do as a criminal defence lawyer to seem odd and to speak on this platform as if this is, I'd rather this was totally normal, and that what you do in the community becomes totally normal without recognising trauma. So that we don't whisper about childhood abuse. So we don't want, nobody likes talking about abused children, but that's who I see every day. And it's not nice. I'm going to tell you, I'm just conscious of time, so I've cut some of what I'm going to say. In your programme, there's a story of Brendan, not his room. But Brendan, a couple of years ago, was in Edinburgh court, and he was given a community payback order for various offences that he did. And there was a warrant out for his arrest. And during the period of the warrant, he managed to find a good Samaritan from the Rock Trust, who nurtured him, who got him prescriptive medication, who got him an address, who got him seeing his doctor. They sorted out his benefits and introduced him to Aid and Abet, an organisation a little bit like Cisco, who mentor people when they come out of jail and they're ready for them to come out of jail. And he met all these people, and he literally turned his life around. By the time he appeared from custody at Edinburgh Sheriff Court, all of these things were in place, and the angry judge said, what's going on? And he explained about all these great things he did, and also explained that he grew up in poverty and in trauma. That by the time he was a baby, his father had left, his mother started abusing drugs and alcohol because she had her own difficulties. She had a series of different men coming in and out of her life, all of whom were violent to her, many of them violent to him, and probably worse. By the time he was probably less than 5, he was in and out of care, so mum would go sober, son would come back, would become addicted to drugs and alcohol, would be taken off. So his life was chaos. By 10 he was drinking constantly, by 11 on cannabis, by 13 his first shot of heroin was administered into his arm by his mother. I tell the judge all of this. She says to me in a very busy court, not as busy as this, but in a busy court, this is her actual voice. Mr. Smith, what are you asking me to do? I says, I'd like you to praise him. And the court fell silent and she said, what? I said, I thought she hadn't heard me. I said, I boomed it. I said, I want you to praise him. And she looked shocked. She looked like she was going to remand him and me. But she did. And for 4 weeks, he was at liberty, got reports done. And by the time I went into court, I was armed with the report from Aidan Abet, his doctor, the Rob Trust, the prescriber, who I can't remember who that was, and importantly, like Julie there, from a social worker, a criminal justice social worker, who literally narrated, unusually, because they don't normally say glibly, he had a difficult childhood, but it narrated all the things that it said, and I was ready to go battling with this judge. As I got to my feet, the judge said, you sit down and don't speak. I thought, here we go. She made the boy stand up. And for 10 minutes, I'll try not to cry, for 10 minutes she praised him. And he left, we left court together, and he said, do you know what, Iain, nobody's ever spoken to me like that in my life. And he walked tall, and he felt great about himself. And I regret not going back to tell her the effect that she had on him. And that's a regret. My last short story is about a great judge, who is a very good judge. It's something a little bit alluded to some of the other speakers have said, is that for 18 years she was a judge, and the day she retired, she described in a talk like this, how she went and followed this young girl's life through JP court, sheriff court, and she was the first person as a judge she met. And she saw this girl, addiction, no addiction, alcohol, drugs, minor crime, major crime, drug crime, violence, in and out of prison. And in the 18th year of her being a judge, she was due to retire, and she talks about what had happened. And she came down from the bench, she took her wig and gown off, and she hugged the girl. She's doing a talk like this, and everyone quite rightly claps, because it was a very compassionate thing to do. The less compassionate thing to do is what I did, which was I raised my hand and I asked her what the girl's life would have looked like if she'd hugged her on the first day. And that was an unkind thing to say, because I didn't mean it as badly as I did, but it made me think, and made her think, because actually if we wait for all these years to try and heal or help someone, then I'm not saying they're too far gone, but why do you not do this in the first day? Why do we not do this in primary school, in nursery school? Help the parents who are struggling, because we do something else. I wish to thank Fritzy for coming over, Cisco, James, Tigers, Ace Aware Nation, Connected Baby, for letting me speak. You may recall, I had a bit of shit in my shoe at the start of this journey, and in a long roundabout way I've managed to understand what the three most important things are. And for me, they're firstly hope, so in that regard, there's gifting hope to people that feel hopeless. And when they fall on their arse, a bit like Brendan, we put a hand down, we don't put a foot on their head, we put a hand down and we lift them up, and we persevere with them. And lastly, most importantly, that we're compassionate towards people, so that's kindness, empathy, love, and that's what we do with people. I'm going to leave you with a slide which the guys are going to put on now. So I'm not going to read it out because I will get more upset than I already am. And if you just read the slides, and I'm dyslexic, it takes me longer to read, so hopefully they'll take account of people like me. I just wish to thank you. So you just watch the slides. Thank you.